Welcome to Grace Talk. Joe, I'm here with David as we just mull over and think and talk around what we're looking at in our preaching series at the moment, Dear God, About Today. Just thinking about how do we live as Christians in 2020. And this week, looking at, do we still need the church? Just straight up let you know, David, you've not actually done this preach yet.
No, unusually. I mean, this is only number 4, isn't it? So whether we can have a unusual
Yes, yeah, it's true. But
difference yet, but unusually we've already done the preaching and talked around it. Yeah. We've talked a lot about this subject.
Yes, yeah,
but no, not
delivered yet.
Actually delivered the preach.
At time of recording, that is true. Someone let Simon Taylor, the man who holds it all together. I guess that's Jesus, isn't it? But so, the one who Jesus uses to hold all things together in Grace Church, having a holiday next week, so we pre-record. So anyway, a little bit different, but the church today, I mean, it's always relevant, but we haven't actually met properly as the church since the 14th of March, and so it just has a new pertinence to this question. What's the pressure, particularly, given all of that, on that question right now?
I mean, man, it's too often said that we are in unprecedented times, but who would have thought that church life this year would have looked like it has looked and still looks? That there is a unique, well, I don't know, unique. There are places around the world and across time where church meeting has not been possible, and but for us in our experience here in modern Western UK, to not be able to meet as churches is something well outside our box.
Yeah,
and it's been tough. It's been. I'm sure that that there is a like in many things in life, a spiritual battle in the sense that we have an enemy who would just love to see the church crumble away and die. But more importantly, we have Jesus whose church it actually is, who loves his church and is building his church and has a plan for his church, and our confidence and our vision is there. But no, it has been difficult, and when you're not gathering into meeting places on a Sunday morning and at other times during the week, it is a question that I think we would all ask ourselves, is like, well, do we need church then? I mean, what role is it actually playing, and what is there something there to contend for, or do we just treat this as the new normal and get on with it? So I think it's a hugely relevant question at this time.
I guess in the sense, for both, while we're still here when we can't meet, what's the point of bothering with all the online stuff, and listening to this? Why should anyone and any Sunday morning and tuning in on YouTube? There's that. Let's just press pause and I'll see you again whenever we can meet. And then I guess there's the bigger, longer term. Well, actually, it's shown to us that we don't need it this last 7 months, and I don't really think many people have got to that place. But I guess a few more are in that first stage, and I think it's worth just reflecting on how crazy it is, as you said. I was saying it just with Liz the other day. If you'd have said to us at the beginning of March that you will not be meeting for probably the rest of the year, you think, what on earth would how on earth would that happen? It's just so far from our consciousness, and we're still shell shocked, really, aren't we, to be in this situation?
Yeah. I loved the picture that I think Ashley put on the Facebook group, reminiscing of the time when the fire alarms went off in the old Grace Centre, and we met in the car park, and I just thought it was a lovely memory. But that there was just something. I know the leadership discussions we were having in that crisis moment, and just weighing, do we do church or do we just say, well, we're not going to meet this week, and it's just the angst, the way we approach the discussion. The same when there was, when there's snow forecast and we think, oh yeah, but we've got to meet, and I just think, well, that was one isolated week. Sunday. How would we have approached the conversation? Shall we meet in 2020 or shall we not? It's just a quite different level.
So let's talk, because I guess for many all these answers really are pretty predictable through this series. Do we still need the church today? I've not heard your preach yet, but I'm confident you're going to answer in the affirmative.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But even now, so we're not just saying when we meet again, do come back. We're saying, contending for do everything you can right now, even as we can't physically meet, to engage with and be the church.
And I think the thing is seeing what the motivation is. It's not that we're just trying to preserve something for the sake of preserving it. That we can find a place of faith. That actually, this is what we're called to. Yeah. This is who we are in Christ, and therefore what is the very best for us as his people.
We're not just hoping for the best, that the church doesn't die. We hold on to a promise. That's right. That it will survive, and Jesus will build his church. So why is it worth? Why do we need the church today? What's worth? Let's talk around that. What's the value, both in lockdown and out?
Yeah. I mean, I think our starting point is to just remember what church is and see how it is God's eternal plan that has been in place from the beginning of time, that God wants to gather a people for his praise and glory, and I guess with the coming of Jesus, when he said, right, my kingdom has now come, and he kind of kicks off then a new era, this new covenant in which we live, which is the era of the church. And there was I was talking to Ali about this podcast, and she was saying, what are we talking about? And I was saying it's about the church and why we need the church. And she said, oh, that's chocolate fudge cake. And it took me a little moment to say, what do you mean? And she then explained and reminded me, by bad memory, I used to teach back in Winchester, where I was in leadership there. I used to teach a session on their sort of new members course or something on the church. And I used to always bring with me a fresh chocolate cake in 3 layers. Can't go wrong. And the top layer represented the Church of Jesus, Universal Church. The next layer down represented all the different local churches in the world, essentially. And then the bottom layer represented people, individual people in the church. And the point is that wherever you cut the cake, you get all those 3 layers. Yeah. And the point is that the church, the wider church, is made up of local churches. Yeah. And so Grace Church is a part of God's wider church. It's not that the Church of Jesus is somewhere else and Grace Church is just doing its thing. No, Grace Church is a part of it. Yeah. And then individual people in the church, that's what makes up Grace Church. It's the people.
It's so much bigger than us.
Absolutely.
But also it is us. Yeah. And it is us as individuals as well as us.
We're part of something together. Eternal and amazing. And, and come the end, you read Revelation, end of the story, and heaven and earth have passed away, but the Church of Jesus is there, and being presented as.
So, did you bake that cake yourself?
No, that was
the triple layer chocolate fudge
Ali's
cake
contribution to
very
that training, but I do
valuable
remember it being lovely.
I bet. That's a good idea, trying to think of an illustration and then ask your wife to bake a cake, a chocolate fudge cake.
The best illustrations are those you can eat
it's
afterwards.
A helpful, good tip.
So that's one thing, just realising, the
big
eternal significance of church.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is that when God puts before us an exhortation to come on, invest, build church, it is for his glory, but there's never a disparity between what is for his glory and what is for our good, because God is good. And so actually it does us good. It meets intrinsic needs that God has placed in us are meant to be met through finding who we are in Jesus's body in the church.
Yeah. And in discussing it as I guess three things to drawn out of why it's worth it and why we need it in worship. We need it to worship. We need it for meaning in ourselves. We need it for community. And so worship, because what that boils down to right now is turning the telly on or the iPad or whatever it is you're watching it on a Sunday morning. And the reality is it is not the same as we would normally experience our times of sung worship, where we're gathering and worshipping and singing with one voice. That, we miss that. And long for the day we can do it again properly. But in the interim, it isn't that. But it's worth acknowledging that, but it's still worth it. Doing whatever the interim is. Why?
I think it's just recognising I think what we're doing at the moment is the best we can do, and we're doing it as well as we can.
I mean, the worship team are doing phenomenal.
Absolutely, and moving forward with that as we feel able to do so. But it's also right that we just recognise and are wise within ourselves to the inherent danger of our experience of church at the moment. And I think that inherent danger is that it can make it sort of about me. It can make us quite introspective in our worship, and it's not it's not wrong to watch it later. It's not wrong to be I don't know, putting out the washing as you're watching the YouTube feed. It's not that God is looking down on you disapprovingly. No, we're under grace, right? He just loves that you're his child and you want to worship him. But I think we need to just recognise that if that becomes our approach, it's just, well, I'll do it when it's convenient to me, within my schedule, however I do it, that our worship just becomes a bit smaller. It becomes a bit about me within my experience, when actually the need that we have is to get outside ourselves, get beyond our reality and say, hey, God, you are so much bigger. And so it's just kind of recognizing that danger and making sure that we're not letting ourselves go down a road of saying, hey, I worship on my terms.
Yeah. But I guess at the same time, to just say, I just can't, it's either as I'm hanging the washing out or it's not at all, and whether we can contend for more, but it's still worth going for whatever we can do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because I guess just thinking of people, for myself, we're either sorting the kids out with supernovas online and trying to get them entertained like that so we can worship, or we're trying to entertain them with something else, or we're worshipping through them, trying to just get them involved in dancing with us. But that's just with families with young kids. And it's, actually trying to make that a meaningful moment. And even if it doesn't feel like it is, still doing it and contending for it. Because if you take even that away, which may feel like not much, it's just so much more beneficial in terms of our worship than nothing. But then you've equally got, people who maybe live on their own or live in a household with people who aren't Christians or accessing Grace Church stuff. And it's not normal, is it? Where we're at, but it's worth contending for because of that need in us to worship something.
There's
beyond
huge grace in it.
Yeah.
And I think to acknowledge that danger that I speak of is in itself to mitigate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
Because you think, oh well, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to get all about me and then you won't, because that immediately says no. I'll do what I can to genuinely be a worshipper.
Yeah. And there's meaning to be found as well, even so. Not just by taking everything out. If you'd have said to me in March that you wouldn't have to write a rota or anything or be on a rota for 7 months or whatever, you'd be thinking, wow, praise the living God. We all hate rotas. And we live in this world, we think rotas are the worst thing. And we're freed of that. We need to try and think, well, but it doesn't mean we're free of the church. And it's this whole thing, it's not what we do, is it? Church. It's something of who we are in it.
It's an interesting question as to what gives us momentum in our sort of experience of church. And I think even what I found, I was challenged in this, that a lot of my own momentum was, what's the next church event in the diary? And I would, I've done that one. What's the next one? Okay, I'll go to that event on that evening, and then I'll go to that event. And that kind of pulls me through my church experience.
Being a part of a church is being someone who goes to a bunch of events.
Yeah. And I think now we're not going to church. We know it's not a building, right? We maybe know it's not events, but now we can think, well, I watch Grace Church. It's something I watch. And that, I think, equally misses it, falls short of what church is. And
you said, interesting comments, maybe just taking it out of your what you're saying, your preach, but by rejecting church, we don't deny an activity. You deny who you are, and you deny an identity, I guess, ultimately, and that is, we go to church because we are in Jesus, and we go to be part of His body, and it's
So we don't go to church. We are church. We are,
and we know that more now than ever.
That's
more
right.
than ever.
Yeah. So I've heard just a few people who would say, well, I used to come along on a Sunday, but now you're not meeting. I've kind of moved on in my life and doing other stuff. And when you start meeting again, I might come back again, but it's not really a part of my life right now. And it's kind of, you're not just missing out on, assuming you're a Christian and your faith's in Jesus, you're not just missing out on content. You're not just missing out on events. It's even something more than, you are missing out on worship, but there's something even more than that. It's like you are denying who you are. It's a kind of a denial of what's true about you as in your identity. And so my appeal would be to see church as just you, not a thing separate from you.
Part of the chocolate fudge cake.
Indeed. Yeah, the vital bottom layer.
And then I guess most obviously, really, the value of being in a church, probably most obvious and apparent, is the community, and that actually, I think, I guess to put it potentially crudely, the biggest selling point of the church right now is the community it offers, and I think the world is desperate for it. This kind of, and we have it, and we can't express it by gathering, but there's a huge. We were created to need this community, and God created the church and ordained it, since the beginning of time, and it's not a coincidence, those two things in us.
Yeah, there are needs that we know we have, and there are needs that we don't know we have, and I think in terms of our need to be worshippers and our need to have meaning, I think everybody has those needs, but don't necessarily know it, out in society in general. But people have a need for community, and I think they know it. I think people are really.
And then there's a lack of it generally elsewhere.
Yeah, there is. There's all these studies done on how we relate in different contexts, different sizes of group, and we can. When we are in a football crowd or a nightclub or a shopping centre, we're in a public space and it's anonymous and people don't know who we are, and that's one way of relating to people. You might have a comment about the baked beans, but you're not going to share your life with people. And then we have our tight-knit family who know absolutely everything and anything about us, and it's very intimate, and they know all our deepest, darkest secrets. But what has been recognised is that there is a real need for a social gathering between those two, and a place where we are known. You're not sharing every life secret, but actually it's a place where you are known. People know your name, know something about you, care about you, and recognise you, and we need that, and everybody needs that. The church has found it, and God has said, "I made you this way, and I've provided the church for you." And it's we don't have to qualify in any way in terms of our age and our background and our race and status and all of that. It's just, hey, if you're in Jesus, then you qualify, and the church is unique in that.
Yeah. So give us a final comment on if you're people going about their weeks this week, why should we bother keep putting the effort in with Zoom and YouTube and these as very much a means to an end? But,
I mean, I think we're doing great. We really are. I mean, I hear so many stories, and people just sharing how much they appreciate what we're doing as a church, but also how they appreciate the love that's shown and helping one another out. Life groups are just so important at the moment. And I think, I mean, even, I probably shouldn't go down this road too far, but just chatting to other leaders, and even in our family of churches or churches in the city, and we're all comparing notes, and it's fascinating. And is it okay to say I'm proud of our church for what we're doing and just how we are engaging with one another, and we're doing well. And I think we should be encouraged, and I would just say press on. Press on. Don't let that thought lodge in your mind where it says, "Oh, shall I just check out for a while?" I think God knows what you need, and He has put church around you to provide that. And I think we need those things more than ever right now. So it's weird. It's not what we want with church life at the moment. We'll get back there, I'm sure. But let's press in every way we can.
Very helpful, and hard though it is, we need the church. It blesses us to persevere through.